Welcome to the Nerd Tutorial Podcast, a podcast offering discussions and tutorials about nerdy subjects for people who aren't necessarily nerdy themselves. With you today is myself, your nerdy tutor George, and with me today, a professional traveler, my mom.
Oh, I'm a professional traveler.
I've always considered you a professional traveler. You always go to a lot of places. You've done a lot of planning for all your vacations.
That's true. I have a women's travel group. I plan for 16.
I think you have your own
that.
You do a local blog or something about your travels, or you update a website too.
Yeah, I do.
So I would consider you a professional traveler. I am not a professional traveler. I'm a professional con-goer, but not a professional traveler.
Okay.
And so the reason we talk about professional travel, and the reason we talked about Japanese manga last time, is that we're going to Japan.
Yay!
In about 2 weeks.
Less,
yes.
My office is already in a panic.
Oh, I feel so bad at work, too. I feel guilty for going because I just got a new job, and I'm just like... But at the same time, I haven't gone on vacation for, like, a long period of time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
So, we're going to Japan, and so you might wonder, why are we going to Japan? I've always wanted to go to Japan.
And I've always made you go where I wanted to go, so you've gone backpacking through Guatemala.
Which was fun at the end of the day. It's weird... Like, as much as those bumpy roads were very bumpy roads.
Well, I like the thing where we were backpacking on the Snaky Trail, and when he said Snaky Trail, I said, oh, you mean like windy? He said, no, there are snakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, we went backpacking in Guatemala for 6 nights.
6-7 days or something like that.
Yeah, with mules and a muleteer. They got us lost.
Oh, yeah, no. I still remember the night in which you scared the crap out of a turkey out of a tree.
Yeah, that's a good story, actually.
Yeah. Or one of my favorite times is like, Mom, there's a scorpion in my tent. Oh, hold on, let me get my camera.
Yeah, you told me that was the wrong response.
In hindsight, it's it's the perfect sitcom response, but
yeah. So we are actually as travelers this time taking backpacks, and tell us why we are taking backpacks.
Because we are going not just to one place in Japan, we're going to many places in Japan. And because I got a backpack for Christmas.
You did get a backpack for Christmas.
Beautiful backpack for Christmas with lots of pockets, too. There's a lot of
zips. It's actually a very practical travel backpack.
Yes. So the greater question a lot of times is, why are we going to Japan? Well, not mostly just because I want to go to Japan, but why did I choose Japan as the place I want to go to? I've been fascinated with Japan and Japanese culture for just probably ever since before I even left for college. I've always found my entry to Avenue was obviously Japanese animation and manga, and then obviously video games as well. But through that lens of that, I've found this unique kind of environment where it's what I call the kitchen sink syndrome. They try everything in Japan. And they never know what's going to be popular and what's not going to be popular. So that's why you get, weird stuff that always comes out of Japan. Because Japan is always the opinions that, hey, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, great. We'll move on to the next thing. We won't spend too much money on this. Or if we spend a lot of money on it, great. Now other people know what not to do. But again, in Japan, I find they just have such a creative sort of environment that they create so much stuff. But when you look at the people, they seem like they just don't want to bother anybody. But it's that land in which you get a lot of weird stuff because they try everything. I mean, who would have known that tentacles would have been a thing ever unless Japan decided to give it a try?
Well, and I guess that's one of the interesting things is that so much of this does focus on when you look at blogs and things on Japan on food. Mm-hmm. Because there is so much different food. There's a lot of different food varieties there. And again, they're not just limited to seafood in a lot of cases. We might consider traditional sushi dishes and things like that. They have an entire region of their country that's devoted just to beef. And even Kobe beef, it's world famous.
Oh yes. And
we're doing that, right?
Oh yes, we are.
Okay.
I've actually just been emailing with another person here about sake tasting in one of the places that we're at. Trying to talk, and the guy I think is trying to talk me into going in the middle of the afternoon. I was I don't know if I want to be drunk that early in the afternoon, but maybe in the evening. It's we get really busy in the evenings. It's oh, okay, well, maybe in the afternoon. We'll see. We're flexible.
we're flexible.
Yeah, no, and
I still do yoga.
And that day we were going to go visit a castle, but we're not going to talk about what we're going to do in Japan here just yet.
That's not the purpose of this week's podcast.
No,
okay.
this podcast is all about what we're doing in preparation before we go to Japan. So what are we doing to get ready here primarily? Well, I'm in my mom's case. My mom isn't really preparing this trip at all,
which is weird for me because usually I'm the planner.
Yes,
and other people just show up and go along for the ride, and it's really odd having the shoe on the other foot.
Yes, and so I'm doing a lot of trying to figure out what we're going to do each day, and I know where we're going to be at each day. Essentially, we're in several different places. We're in some places for multiple days, but a lot of it is just very much kind of the ad hoc and very much kind of as we go walk along. There are some things that have planned that we're going to do, but a lot of it's just kind of getting lost and seeing what we see in that particular area, and so that's a lot of what my intent is trying to find us cool stuff to do.
Okay. So what tools have you been using to do that?
I've been using a lot of guidebooks primarily, and I've also been watching some blogs as well. So like each of the different areas we're going to, I've been reading usually like YouTube travel vlogs or YouTube people that live in Japan who are like, oh yeah, you have to go here, you have to go see this, stuff like that. That's how we found that's how you found the place in Kyoto with the Starbucks. Yes.
So there's a new, fairly new, just opened in 2019. Starbucks in a 200-year-old building, and they have kept the building intact, and you can drink your Starbucks and have a Japanese tea experience while doing it.
Oh yeah, no, it's got.
So you order in one room, and then they whisk you out of that room into another one where you actually pick up your drink and choose your silk pillow and sit on the floor.
Yeah, and they have an upstairs seating area as well.
Yeah.
Again, it looks very, very cool and very unique. So, like, that's kind of cool. I've been using a lot of some guidebooks that I've since bought here, and then also watching a lot of travel things. Because again, I mean, like, you can read the books, but they don't exactly give you like a great idea. A lot of cases, sometimes the travel blogs are just exactly what you're looking for.
It's been interesting for me because what I have done is while I'm on the stationary bike in the morning, I've been searching YouTube travel blogs, and I've always relied on guidebooks before, and from now on I won't. I'll still continue to use them. Like there's the Eyewitness series, which I really like, because it has drawings has really good detail architectural drawings.
Yes.
Of the grounds of things, and that helps me sort of orient myself when I'm there.
Yes.
Having seen the drawing beforehand, so I particularly like that series. But in the past, I've always relied on travel books, and this time, after speaking to you, I started looking at different travel blogs. There are a couple of people I really like, and I found that really helpful because there's stuff I didn't know.
It's almost like an eyewitness account, and one of the nice things I like about it is that some people have overlays of maps where they are, and then other people have, like, obviously the video component to it gives you a very good historical view of what you're looking at, so you can be like, that's just like the video. We're here.
We're walking down the street with them, yeah.
Yeah, and you get that perspective, and you get that really kind of like, I found it kind of useful because it's like, oh, I now definitely want to see this.
Yeah.
Stuff like that here.
After watching several videos on everything you can buy in the Daiso store.
Yes. Yeah.
The Daiso 100 yen store, which is the equivalent of like 90 cents.
Which is something we can definitely.
We are souvenir shopping in the Daiso yen store. They've got, I mean, like there are 4 or 5 videos that I viewed on that.
Mm-hmm. No. Those things are apparently a marvel of anything you would want to buy. Anything you might necessarily need for, again, 100 yen, which is about $1 in U.S. currency. That's how I always remember U.S. currency versus Japanese yen.
Yeah.
So, and I find it to be just like, I'm super excited about seeing all sorts of different things there. Like, what are you excited to see, Mom?
Okay, so first of all, one of the unique things that you get when you're going to Japan, when I tell people I'm going to Ecuador, nobody asks me to bring them anything back. Mm-hmm. Nobody really wanted anything from Morocco, which was stupid because Morocco has really cool stuff. I've yet to go to Morocco without bringing back a couple $1,000s from rugs, but because they do. But going to Japan, I have requests from people for things. Okay, so amongst the things I have requests to go purchase for people, Pokemon. Apparently, there are several different Pokemon stores, and it's one of the few places you can buy Pokeballs.
I imagine so.
Okay, and there are unique Pokemon that you can only get in the Japanese stores.
Probably.
And each store has its own unique something that you can only get in that store. You won't even find it in another Pokemon store. It's unique to that store.
Probably. Yeah, no, Japan does a really, really great job of doing like its own kind of internal marketing for whatever it is it has. Like, so an example here to complement that is that Japan has kind of like its own kind of like social network sort of thing called Line.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lime. I can't remember what's an N or with an M. I want to say what's an M, so it's Lime. And they have a mascot. By the way, there's a mascot for everything in Japan. Cities have mascots. Like, for example, the place we're going to Nara. Guess what their mascot is?
Oh, it's got to be the deer.
It's a deer.
Yeah.
It's a very cool looking deer too, actually.
I would expect nothing less.
Yes. So mascots are a big thing, and I don't mean just like like a cartoon character. No, I mean like a person in a full body costume.
Okay, so and a lot of those actually come from the feudal days. A lot of the older cities have mascots that originate from
they're kind of their legend or their historical importance.
So one of the first things I did, and this is going back like 6 or 8 months ago, because we've known we were going for nearly a year now, was I read a book that took you through the history of Japan from
as far back as you can possibly
go.
Yeah.
Long book, audio book, very good. And I would suggest that you do that. So because it was really interesting to read, even though the structures we're seeing in a lot of cases are fairly new, because Japan has earthquakes.
It has earthquakes. It
has
tsunamis.
Fires.
Yes.
They have a lot of fires. So a lot of things were built from timber.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the structures we'll be seeing aren't as old as maybe you might see someplace else.
Yes, that's true.
Still, you don't really think of Japan as having castles, and it does.
It has quite a number of castles.
Yeah, and I found reading the feudal history really kind of helped me understand some of the customs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it understanding sort of the frame of mind.
Yes.
Sort of helps you, because that's very visible throughout their history.
It's kind of very much a part of their culture, very much still here now.
Yeah.
Even as it's becoming a lot more westernized, like there's a certain element to their culture that's just not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about that for a second? Because I found that reflected in their history.
So a lot of their culture has always been this kind of interesting take on always having like a war. Like there's always been like wars and fighting. It's kind of where the term samurai came from, which was, this is why a lot of samurai actually had a lot of power back in the day. It was because you were always going to war and you needed able-bodied soldiers and knights to kind of lead your stuff. It's not quite unlike, London and, feudal
medieval ages were medieval ages.
Yeah,
pretty much wherever you were.
Medieval, but like it's interesting that in Japan it was never just one place or one thing versus another. There's never like the English versus the French or the English versus like the Scottish or anything like that. No, it's like different like territories in Japan fighting with one another over the right to own their own land, and it's super interesting to see how much fighting actually goes on for a long period of time and how little peace there was for a long period of time. I mean, you might get through stretches for 20, 30 years without any fighting, but then you'd have another one here just shortly thereafter.
And they took that outside of their own borders as well.
Yes.
They took over portions of Manchuria on and off, even after the end of the Second World War, which I hadn't been aware of.
Yeah, they took over parts of Korea
and Taiwan. They were on and off Taiwan.
Yep, and starting to encroach on China. In fact, actually, it's very little known that they were actually a part of the First World War in a very small capacity, but because they were a part of it, they got to annex some land
Northern China.
in northern China, oddly enough, even though China really wasn't that involved in First World War.
It was interesting reading their history. I think part of what I found interesting was there were times when they went into other countries, and it's such an honor-based society
Mm-hmm.
that I have problems with the idea that they would go over and conquer somebody else.
When like they're very much honorable about themselves. Yeah.
And the other thing I found difficult to sort of reconcile was that they were very isolationist for years and years and years. If you traded with Japan,
Mm-hmm.
you
We were like a very rare person to do so.
were a rare person to do so, but you lived in there was a particular port city
Mm-hmm.
that was isolated where the trading took place. If you were a foreigner, you didn't leave.
That one little spot.
Yeah, so you didn't. They were very concerned about maintaining their own culture and not allowing others to infiltrate it.
Yeah, this was a thing that happened in the 18th century when you started in the beginning of the late 17th century, going into the 18th century, where Japan was basically like they had foreigners there, and the foreigners were not used to the Japanese customs, and the Japanese were very much of the impression it was like, you're in our place, you need to respect our stuff here, and the
yeah.
foreigners were like, what are you talking about? Like,
This is not how the rest of the world does
this
it.
is not how the rest of the world does it. Just because it's your place doesn't mean you can't share it. And then and Japanese were like, okay, well then we don't want anybody here.
Yeah.
And so basically decided. And now there was a small like this port city of I believe it was Portuguese. I want to say it was.
Yeah.
That was basically allowed to live there, but they weren't allowed to leave either.
They weren't allowed to travel around.
Nope, and they could only stay in this like one little port city. And if you had training there, you could have trading there, but even then, it was very, very small port, and eventually, I guess in like the late 1800s here, the Americans came by and said like, "Hey, we want to do business with you. Open up the gates." And they were like, "No, we don't want to do business with you."
Yeah.
And the Americans were like, "No, you're going to do business with us. We'll come back in like 2 years, and if you don't open up, we might have to do some talking."
Yeah. We were very threatening.
But then I think the Japanese quickly realized that this isolationist sort of attitude here had actually made them fall behind with regard to the rest of the world, and they basically saw what the rest of the world was doing and was like, "Oh, we need to catch up in a hurry."
And actually, what seemed to me to turn that was the advent of the airplane and the motor car.
Well, not even that. I would say it was trains.
So, okay.
Trains and electricity were very much, again, because for one point here, Japan had no railway system at all. And then, like, overnight, it basically just started building massive amounts of railways. Which, in this point here, while they're not the same railways that might have been there 100 years ago, they're very much the same intentions.
And they're known for their trains now.
Oh, yeah. In Japan's... the best example I can always describe for Japan is we did this thing in 7th grade where in world history where my teacher basically went, okay, we're going to put 30 desks together. I want 10 people to sit in these anywhere in any desk. And this is the size of America. Now we took away like 10 desks. We had like 20 desks left. So like, okay, now put these desks together. 10 people sit down. Great. This is kind of like Europe at this point here. Now everybody onto one desk. That's Japan. Japan is a rather large population on a very small piece of land, and they're very much intent on not ruining what is a lot of their like forested areas and their culture there at all. So they're not like bulldozing land all that often. They build up, and there's also this aspect in Japan where you don't necessarily want to bother other people, and that goes to a lot of different ways. In the sense, you don't want to bother people where you don't want to take up more space than you absolutely need to. So you might have an apartment space that's probably no bigger than like 300 square feet, which might be a large apartment space for you. For some people, that might be like if you're a bachelor with like 300 square feet, it's like, ooh, man, you must live high. It's like, it's 300 per square feet. To us, that's no bigger than the size of a hotel room.
Yeah.
If not smaller. And that's also including like your kitchenish area, your bathroom. Like, I could not imagine living in, well, I mean, I have lived in like less than 300 square feet before.
But if you travel throughout Asia, you actually do see, a kitchen is not a kitchen. It's a hot plate and a sink.
It's a hot plate in a sink, or it's like,
and people go,
or it's the hallway.
Or people go shopping every day.
Yes, they don't. Yeah,
it's not like here. So you're not storing goods in the cupboards.
No, you go and you buy your dinner, and then you go home and you cook it on kind of a daily thing. In some cases, if you are going to school and it's your turn to cook, you might go to the store before you come home with whatever it is that you decide you wanted to cook that day.
Well,
or in Japan, in a lot of cases, a lot of people eat out too.
Well, okay, so in 7-Elevens.
Okay, yeah, so 7-Elevens, Lawson's, any sort of like quickie mart sort of thing, like these are big deals in Japan. You can do almost anything in these places. You can do everything from paying your apartment bill to your water bill or electric bill to getting like actual like good food from there, like bento boxes, and like there is a lot of stuff you can do in these places, and they're just everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Actually, 7-Eleven used to be originally owned here in America. It's now owned by a Japanese corporation, and so, and oddly enough, they own the brand and the corporation now. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, that makes sense because in Taiwan, you couldn't shake a stick without hitting a 7-Eleven. In Taipei, you could never see less than 2 7-Eleven signs on any particular street.
Yep.
Just standing in the street.
And again, like 7-Elevens are not kind of like 7-Elevens here. I mean, they're very similar in concept, but it's kind of more like a middle of the ground, kind of like between a grocery store and kind of a convenience store almost. Like your slightly larger 7-Elevens.
Yeah, but it's having been, because I'm just sort of imagining from my experience in Taipei, they weren't they weren't a whole lot large. They were larger, but they weren't a small grocery store.
No, not a small grocery store maybe, but maybe like a bodega or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Kind of like that. Yeah. But no, yeah. 7-Elevens are everywhere in Japan. The other thing we'll find everywhere in Japan, vending machines.
I've heard about this.
So this is actually kind of an interesting thing. Going back to the topic of Japanese people don't like to bother each other. So there are vending machines just about everywhere in Japan. On every street corner, we could walk through like a rural area, and there'll be like a vending machine attached to like a street lamp. Like they're everywhere.
Really?
They're in a lot of places in Japan, and they don't all sell the same thing. There's a lot of variety in these machines. Everything from like coffee to iced coffee to beer, snacks. I've seen one that dispenses bananas and fruits.
Oh, I like that.
Other ones that are kind of the ones you might see at the airport or at the mall where they're dispensing like electronics maybe.
Oh.
Like headphones or
Yeah.
like whole like iPads maybe. So those ones do exist. There are other ones that might even dispense more common items like like your toothbrush and like hairbrush or stuff like that, and some that dispense underwear.
Oh.
Sometimes used underwear.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay. Why?
Again, the best way I can describe it here is that the Japanese culture, Japanese people themselves are very reserved people, mostly because you don't want to bother anybody else with your stuff here. Like in a lot of cases, like I've heard people tell me that people in Japan won't even voice an opinion at all because they don't want to bother somebody else with their opinions. You don't want to seem opinionated. You always want to seem reserved and kind of like you won't, like if you ever were to ask somebody is like like, hey, what do you think of like this politician? They would not answer that question usually.
Well, and I understand it's hard to actually get people to say no. When you talk about the language, they actually introduce sort of different ways to say no. Like if somebody said don't want to go to dinner with you,
Hmm.
they wouldn't say that. They'd say something like, "Oh, that's a little bit hard."
Yeah, like and again, because they don't want to bother anybody, which is also kind of,
But they're very conscious of not offending people.
yeah. And to go back to the vending machines here, is that like vending machine, like if you when we go through Japan, we're gonna find that the streets are very very clean. We're not gonna find a lot of garbage anywhere because kind of a social etiquette is that you don't walk and eat. If you're gonna eat,
I've heard this that's really considered rude.
yeah, I mean, like you don't walk and you eat, or if you're walking around, you don't care. You know, like, there's not a lot of garbage bins anywhere either. So like a lot of the garbage cans are going to be by, like right outside the 7-Eleven or by the vending machines, because the intention is that like you don't want to walk around with your food or anything or your drink because you might spill it on somebody else, or you might, especially if you're walking around in a busy place.
People have to be cautious of you, and that's
Mhm.
that's viewed as
Yeah, and that's viewed as being rude to everybody
being
else.
imposing. Yeah.
Yeah, but Japanese culture is also very much that everyone kind of works together to get to a better place. I mean, if you go to school here, if you go to Japanese elementary school here,
Mhm.
like when you get to like the second and third grade, you actually from that point onward you start serving your fellow students food.
Oh.
So like there'll be a cafeteria where they make all the food, they bring it into class, and then like as a rotational sort of thing, certain people will dispense the food for you. So like you'll get your rice and in whatever else that you get for food there, and somebody else will serve it to you, like kind of like cafeteria style. So they'll be the ones to serve you stuff. That's also, it even goes even further that there are no janitors in schools. The students clean up the hallways and clean up their classes. And
Actually, that's a
rotational
good.
sort
I would think that that's a good idea because it would certainly make them much more conscious of what they were
It
doing.
would make them more conscious of what they're doing, a certain ownership of where it is that where they study and work
Yeah.
at, and then at the same time, it also kind of just builds a good habit of keeping yourself in your areas clean. Like, well, that's what you do at school. That's what you got to do at home. Like
Yeah.
I've often wondered if I could find a way to have like a grant to have like a school that's like a K through 6
Mm-hmm.
that's taught in a Japanese style. I think it would be a fascinating experiment.
Oh, it would.
Yeah. If only just because, like, as an example, like children don't take tests until the 4th grade.
That's actually a really good idea because tests are pretty pressure
They
filled.
got a pressure on you, and there's a lot of focus on learning material just to get decent at it here. Like,
Yeah.
let's just learn the material here first, and the tests really aren't any better of telling you. I always find tests kind of odd in that particular sense, anyways, because the test meant to show you whether you learned the material or not. But if you didn't really learn the material, then you have to go back and redo it. But you never go back and redo it. You have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So the test is kind of superfluous and not very useful at the end of the day if you consider the fact that the test is meant to tell you whether you learned the material or not. And if you didn't learn the material, then like you have to the rest of the class keeps on going, but you don't get a chance to relearn what you didn't learn.
Yeah.
Kind of gotta run even harder to catch up.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I would find it fascinating for that kind of school, if just to see like for like 5 years to see like how these kids like grew up later on, like if that were a thing.
What impact it had.
Yeah, I would find that fascinating.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
So I mean, like, so there's a lot of kind of cool Japanese kind of customs and everything. Another one we're going to find a lot is that we're not going to do a lot of handshaking.
I have read about this as well.
Yes, that they do not like. Not that they don't like touching each other, but like at the end of the day, it goes back to trying not to bother each other. Like your handshake might be really, really pronounced versus another person may not like holding your sweaty hand maybe, or
so you bow from the waist.
You bow from the waist, and you always try to go a little bit lower depending on your seniority. So, like, if you're like the head boss, you won't bow that much, but other people will be expected to bow much lower instead, because you're the boss at the end of the day. Business cards are also a big deal in Japan as well. You can't, like they'll hand you a business card with like 2 hands, And then you kind of got to like study it for a little bit. Okay, and then you put it in like you make sure you put it in like a nice place like a portfolio or like another business card holder, or you hold on to it. You make sure that you take care of it because it's kind of like you're passing on your soul or your identity kind of at the end of the day.
Oh, I got you a nice business card holder.
Yes, I have one of those.
Very good. Okay.
And we have business cards for the podcast.
Yes, we do.
I will find that odd to hand it to people in Japan, but it certainly could be fun.
Could be fun.
So passing those are a big deal in Japan. So let's talk about the language, because we're both studying Japanese through audiobooks and some written material here and there. We took a class at one point.
And I actually only took about half the class. I got really frustrated by trying to do the
vocabulary and the writing at the same time.
writing at the same time.
Yeah,
it lost me.
I found that kind of difficult too, because I felt the class itself as a 1 week sort of class for like an hour and a half was a good idea on paper, but the way was taught was not the most ideal way, because we're trying to do too many things at once almost.
And we should say we took this at a language learning center, and I actually took Spanish at that same learning center for several semesters and did quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of the difference was that you were first of all, we were learning out of a college textbook.
Yes.
Which so the vocabulary was different than I think what is more usable. I even have that complaint about the tapes we're doing now, because I'm really not going to go to somebody's. I'm not going to be invited to go to somebody's home.
House. No.
Yeah,
no.
And so I don't really care about how to say that.
Yeah, that's a kind of superfluous phrase, because we're not going to really be invited to somebody else's house.
There are a couple of those in that lesson plan, but I've taken that same series, which is Pimsleur,
mm-hmm.
to learn Arabic, to learn Egyptian Arabic, which is different than regular Arabic.
Yes.
To learn a number of other languages, and had success with it. So
mm-hmm.
I stick with what I know. But some of what we're learning isn't practical. I would rather have more behind, in front, that sort of thing, left, right.
I do find a lot of like the phrases. Some of the phrases that we're going through are phrases we will probably use fairly frequently. I mean,
where is it?
Where is it?
Toide doko desu ka? Yeah.
Sumimasen, or excuse me, which can be used in both cases, either like, oh, I'm sorry, or hey, excuse me. Like,
well, apparently it's how you call a waiter.
Yes.
Because they don't just come by your table to take your order.
No.
You have to call them.
Yes, you do have to call them.
Okay, so we'll stick to language, and then we'll talk about strange other things we've learned.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so the language is in a sort of a reverse order, and there are lots of ways to say things, because there are a lot of things you don't say directly.
So a lot of what Japanese with the language here is a lot of kind of assumption about what it is you're talking about. So like if you're talking about, like, so you say, in the language, if you say going to eat, which is tabimasu, it's pretty much assumed that, oh, I'm going to go eat.
Yeah. And
unless you kind of announce, anatawa, unless you kind of looking at somebody, tabimasen ka?
Tabimasen ka.
And you look at them and you're like, and you're looking at somebody else, then it's this assumed kind of a part of the language, which I think is actually like a good thing at the end of the day, because like the English language is mainly based off of kind of like noun, verb, in a lot of cases, as where this other one is like verb then noun then verb as well, but kind of in reverse order.
Well, and I always like, what I always appreciate in other languages is we say I'm going to eat, and there you just say I'm eating.
Yeah.
And you're cutting out all that going.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you cut out, which explains a lot of the time when I watch a lot of Japanese animation, it always seems like they're able to say a lot of stuff in a short period of time, which makes sense, because a lot of the stuff they're saying would be cutting out some of the I's and U's and stuff like that. It's the kind of assumption or presumption of what you're talking about or who you're talking to.
On the flip side,
mm-hmm.
you actually verbally insert a question mark. So
yes.
So if you're asking somebody, if I wanted to ask you, do you want to eat now? I would say, ima tabemasu ka?
Yeah,
and you would
yeah. You can do it both ways. I find that's the one
This-
thing. So like, Tabima Senka would be like, won't you
What-
eat now? Or
It-
versus
what-
like
because
Tabimasen
there's a
is like,
negative.
are you,
So
are
ma-
you going to eat?
Masen, when you have that on it, there's a negative.
Yeah.
Either you're not doing something or won't you do something.
Yeah.
And if I just want to say, do you want to eat?
Mm-hmm.
It's just tabimasen.
Tabimaska.
Tabimaska. So, but you actually have to add the ka,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't do it with your voice inflection. Like
No.
we ask questions with a voice inflection. There, everything's very flat.
Yes.
So you don't. There's not a lot of. Although then you get into so desu ne.
Yeah.
And
that's-
there is.
And that's weird because in that one there, if you kind of linger on the a part, so desu ne, like that sounds like to them that's like, oh, I'm thinking about it, or let me think about it, and versus if you just say it real quickly, like, so desu ne, it's like, yes, it is,
Yeah.
and you're just like, wait, which one?
Well, okay, so that whole
'Cause that one
That-
does imply on the inflection.
yeah, so that whole language bit there, which is really kind of okay, is in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Is because you say ideska?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay?
Yep.
That whole series of words are used with inflection and mean all kinds of things. Samimasen is used in all kinds of ways as well. Apparently, based on several blogs, because I started looking at blogs that were the most used phrases and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And those are best, I find, if you look for foreigners who are telling you, people who've lived there for a year or so and are blogging about it.
Yeah, I found a lot of people who've lived there for either like 4 or 5 years or 10 years or something,
Yeah.
and they're telling you that the most common phrases, like they would be the ones that tell you the most common phrases they use all the time.
And they'll say, sumimasen, you use it all the time.
Yes.
It's used for everything.
Yeah.
And that's a word that has and a little, you kind of almost use that like please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Although there's other words for that too.
Yes.
Onegaishimasu is thank you, but it really is will you do me a favor, please?
Kind of like that, yeah.
And no thank you is ie kikoda, ie
Kekodes, yeah. But
Yeah.
if you don't have that ie on there, Kekodes is like Kekodes is like it's here, right?
that kokodes is
Kokodes
it's here.
is here.
Sokodesk is it's over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you can tell, we're struggling to learn Japanese.
But the one nice thing about Japanese culture is that because a lot of their words come from a lot of, so if you've never seen the Japanese the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese alphabet before, like what's nice about it is that it's very simple. There's an a, e, o, u, a.
Mhm.
Kind of like there's an a, e, I, o, u sort of thing on there.
Right.
And there's an extra letter that just gets added onto it. So there's like a ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, like sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Their alphabet makes no sense because none of these are like the ko versus like the ki. There's nothing between those two alphabet letters that look anything similar to one another.
Yeah,
And that makes it super hard to learn.
well. And I sat there thinking about our alphabet when I was taking the class, and the only ones I could find that looked at all alike, that had similar sounds were B and D,
Yeah.
ba and da,
Or
and
M and N.
M and N. That's true. That's a good example.
Yeah. Like it's like we're fair at the end of the day. We're like if you were learning our alphabet, like why these letters don't look anything different, and we get the added bonus of like, oh, the K sound could be a K sound or it could be a N sound as well. It's like, wait, what? So like
There's apparently a lot to learning at an early age, a different alphabet than your own that allows you to make that transition more easily. And the person I learned that from actually was your younger brother, who went to Greek nursery school because it was offered,
yes,
and so learned the Greek alphabet at a very early age, and then went on to learn Cambodian Sanskrit very easily, and even a little bit of Russian fairly easily because he had already learned to associate sounds with other letters as a very young child. So apparently that makes a difference. I found the whole thing just baffling, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I gave up on the I gave up on that actually, like after like I think the third week in our in classroom sort of thing, because it was just like,
I'm not doing that.
no,
Yeah.
not that I don't want to do it. It's just that for that class, I mean, and not to harp on the class, because I think it would have been a great class if there's sort of class I took every other day for an hour.
Well,
If there's a class I
and-
went to like every day or every other day, like I would feel that it was being drilled into me a little bit more so than like coming back a week later and hoping I remembered what I did over a week later.
Well, I was trying to do it with flashcards and that sort of thing, but
Mhm.
and I think if you were if you were learning it for business, you might have like studied more because you'd have more invested in it.
Yeah, I think yeah.
So I think for some of the people in that class who were taking it for business purposes, it probably was a really good class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least a good intro. I mean, like, that class in and of itself was a good intro into the language. 'Cause now I kind of understood the structure and
That's
the
true.
alphabet, understanding how that kind of stuff worked here. Like, in that particular regard, it was useful. But going back to the English element here, so there's basically three different types of alphabets in Japan. There's hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Now, hiragana is like the original version of the Japanese alphabet for the most part. And then we got katakana, which is actually more Japanese alphabet, but they're meant to describe English words. And then you have kanji, which are basically Chinese characters that they use for Japanese words. Sometimes they're very similar. They're just plain exact words in a lot of cases.
So part of that is the influence of China over Japan, and that some words, and it's the reason for both. Some words come from the Chinese. Certainly their religion and a number of other things are
Influenced.
influenced
Mhm.
by China. And with English, they had to create characters for sounds that are not resident in their vocabulary,
Mhm.
but the word for restaurant, the word for hotel, the word for telephone, a lot of those words come directly from the English.
Yes, a lot. Yeah, and so what from what I understand, and I actually got to talk to a person here just the other day because we have oddly enough an anime expo happening in downtown San Jose.
Which I'm sorry to be missing is Crunchyroll.
Yes. I was okay with missing this, if only just because like I didn't want to have a reason to spend money on stuff like I knew I was going to get to see anyways.
Yeah.
So I was kind of okay with missing it, not the end of my world.
Yeah.
Also because like that one really, really awesome cool cosplay I really wanted to do again, but I didn't have my makeup artist for it,
Yeah.
which is impressive that I have a makeup artist.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
But no, in Japan apparently like learning English is very common amongst people. And so it's a very friendly place for people who do speak English. The one thing I've been advised by other travel blogs and the person I was speaking with here was very much that they don't quite get the pronunciation properly or the syntax correctly for English language. But if you were to say like restaurant, they would be like, oh yes, right over here.
Yeah.
Like they could follow along because I was speaking to a woman who spoke very little English, but I was able to tell her cell phone 1 minute, one moment. And she's like, "Oh, awesome!" And she was like, "Yay!"
Yeah.
And then when she got her phone, it was basically like weaponized cuteness when she saw her cell phone that she lost earlier. So so they don't get like it's like if we were to speak English to them, they wouldn't get it. But if you were just able to say like hotel, and they would ask you, and then you could say like if you said Shinjuku Station, they would eventually, Shinjuku train, they might be able to understand like, oh, you want to go to the station, got it.
Well,
So-
I actually know how to say that in Japanese. So,
yes,
you know.
and this is like the third lesson on the way or something.
Shinjuku eki wa doko desu ka?
Yeah. Or
Um,
where is Shinjuku Station?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about the Japanese language, the was and gas.
Have not gotten that down yet.
I think I figured out part of it.
Okay.
Is that the wa and ga has to come after, so the gas have to come after certain words if there's a vowel that comes after that.
Well, you just wait for the word or, because you right now are being taught the word order is ka. not like doko desu ka, not like the question mark ka, but the ka. You've gotten to Osaki. Osaki.
Coca-Cola.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So that ka is a whole lot different than the word for or if you begin the sentence with or.
Yes.
It's a whole different.
It's a whole new thing, yes.
Just wait for it.
Oh,
I think it's lesson 10.
I'm looking and dreading it all at the same time.
Yeah. So trying to learn enough to get around, because as I understand it, not that many people speak English. There are a lot of people who will understand what you say, but are too afraid of making an error and embarrassing themselves to speak back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to get very good at saying Edo ga yoko hashimasen or hashimasu, which is you speak English very well.
Yeah.
Or Edo ga josuja hasina josuja joso hashimasen or hashimasu. Yeah, again, my pronunciation is like trying to figure it out on the fly.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I'm proud of myself when I can respond quickly.
Me too. Me too. When the voice prompts come up, I'm just like,
I beat it.
I got there before them. And then it was right. I got it right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I pressed the crap out of my my granddaughters who were in the car and the tape was playing, and I was answering, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." So trying to learn the language, because I always like to be polite.
Yes.
And the things that really concern me are being able to say "Ohayo gozaimasu," "Konnichiwa,"
"Konbanwa." Yeah.
And then being able to say "Onegaishimasu" and "Arigato gozaimasu" and those things. So to be able to be polite.
Say please and thank you.
Yeah, and excuse me. And,
I used to have this.
Polite.
I used to have this whole problem when I was working by Disneyland. You'd get a lot of people who would come to go visit Disneyland from other places, and you'd have them come from Mexico, you'd have them come from France and Germany and China and Japan and Russia, and I always felt so bad for people because these people were coming all the way here, and yet none of them could speak a lick of English.
Well, we can't speak a lick of a whole lot of things.
No.
So.
And I feel but again, I mean, like, I feel bad for them that they're having such a difficult time with the language barrier, which is why when I go to Japan, I want to very much be that person that I don't want to be that person that's I didn't study before I came here. I just came here for fun. No, I want to go there with some level of understanding of the language and some ability to communicate with people, if even on a rudimentary level. But I want to but I'm literally downloading apps to make my life easier too. Like Google's Translate is a really great app I've found right now to basically you can hold it up to menus or other things, it'll translate it for you on the fly. And so to help us out.
Okay, so let's talk about some language tools. I have found online, all over YouTube, some really helpful things. First of all, there's Japan Society, which is a group run out of New York that does a series of lessons, very good lessons. You learn how to go to the department store. Works for me. But a very good set of lessons. There are various, as we talked about earlier, foreigners who have online blogs. There's a British woman who tells you pretty quickly. She says, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but I've lived here over a year and people understand what I'm saying. And talks about the phrases that
they're most common.
Are the most common and that you need the most. Part of it was her actually asking her parents when they came to visit her at the end of their visit, what did they wish they could have said?
Yeah.
And
which is very useful, actually.
Which is very useful. So there are a lot of tools
online.
Free.
Again, YouTube is just like a free treasure trove of like I think you could almost plan an entire vacation through YouTube if you needed to. Like I imagine I could follow somebody's blog and almost recreate their entire trip, or pick and choose pieces from a travel blog to figure out what I would do.
Well, do you have some favorites? Because I have some favorites.
The one I've watched a lot of is a gentleman named Chris from abroad in Japan.
Okay.
He's another British guy who basically, said, "Well, I'm just going to go live in Japan," and just plopped himself in Japan. Didn't speak a lick of the language going in, couldn't read it at all, but just decided, "Oh well, I'm just going to go live in Japan for a year or two," and then has ended up living in there for like 5-6 years now.
Well, there are a lot of English speaking people who go to Japan,
Mhm.
where they're native English speakers, who go to Japan to teach English because
Yes.
it's a very profitable thing to do there.
Mm-hmm. I've considered doing it on multiple occasions.
Yeah. So it's a thing. I like a guy I found named Paulo. And Paulo is American but of Japanese descent,
Mm-hmm.
and he is now married to a Japanese woman, and he lives in Tokyo.
He's been there for like 15 years, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You have met Paulo too.
Yes, I've seen a number of his videos. He's the one where I saw the Starbucks ad right afterwards. After I think you linked it, and then I saw his video on it. I was like, oh, that's probably where Mom figured that out from.
That actually may be who turned me on to that, because he did a nice walking video through Kyoto.
Yes.
He does a very nice video, he and his cousin, where they compare things that you see in Osaka and things you see in Tokyo,
Mm-hmm.
and which one they like better.
Mm-hmm.
So they like Tokyo Sea better than they like Universal, which is apparently in Osaka.
Yes. Yeah, so there's Universal Studios in Osaka, and then there's Disney's Tokyo Sea and Disneyland up by Tokyo.
And they talk actually about Disneyland versus Disney Sea, and Disney Sea is apparently the more adult.
Disney Sea is the one that we're gonna go do because it looks the coolest, and
It sounded a lot like a California Adventure versus Disneyland.
yeah. If only just because I've been to a Disneyland before, and I don't need to go to another Disneyland or a
Right,
Japanese take
right.
on that. I want to see some.
I'm a little old for Dumbo.
I'm okay with Dumbo, especially when it breaks, and the
Yeah,
Disney
yeah.
police come out to
Yeah,
hijack your film.
that was cool.
But no, again, I mean, for me, everybody that I've ever read about or seen about has said, if you have to go to one theme park in your life, Tokyo Sea is the one to go to. Apparently, it's the best themed. If you're a Disney fan, it's amazing. It's everything in a Disney park you would ever want, and that's why I'm super excited to go to that one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what we know about Japan going into this here. We've talked about a lot of like the culture, kind of like the cultural sort of ethics of people and kind of stuff like that here. Like, what do you know before we're going to Japan? Like, what do you know about the culture and the people, or maybe not necessarily the people, but maybe about things about Japan?
Okay. So again, I did the audio book. It was a long book,
Mm-hmm.
like 30 hours, I think.
Ooh.
But well, okay, I commute, so it works. I commute, and I also go to the gym every morning. So I had time to do that. I thought that was really helpful because I understood the history, understood where the castles came from, and
Yeah, a lot of them are actually just rebuilt
yeah,
from like 400 years ago.
yeah, because again they have earthquakes and
Fires and wars, and yeah.
and wars, lots of wars. Don't necessarily think of them as a warful people, although Pearl Harbor would teach you otherwise. But yeah. Didn't know that much before starting our podcast. Actually, the podcast has taught me a lot in terms of watching the anime, seeing the manga. So I've learned a lot from that process because those are very reflective of the
culture
of the
and the
culture.
people and the things happening there.
I think I'm excited that we're staying in traditional ryokans.
Yes, that was one of those things that I didn't want to stay in just traditional hotels.
We stay in a hotel anywhere.
Yeah, we can stay in a hotel anywhere. Plus, hotels tend to be a lot more expensive by comparison, I guess, or at least Western hotels versus ryokans. Again, like I don't think I'm paying more than $100 a night for some of these hotels. In some cases, I think one of them is like $75 a night. I know our Capsule Hotel is like just barely $60 a person.
Okay.
So like, it's kind of cool in that particular respect. And I mean, when I'm there, I want to get the full Japanese experience. I don't want to get an edited version of it. I want to get the full experience as much as possible.
Well, and I can stay in a Western hotel anywhere. My most favorite things have been when I've been able to stay someplace traditional.
Yeah.
So,
and mind you, I work in hotels, so like the fact that like I want to, the fact that I don't want to be in another hotel is kind of emblematic of that in and of itself.
yeah. Yeah.
What if? What else have you learned about Japan going forward here?
Okay.
Like Japanese railways are a big deal.
Oh, I got our
Transport-
rail passes. So
Yes.
we got JR passes to be able to take the rail, and there's a green. I got us green car passes, which are first class.
Yep, and we might want to get a Silica Pass while we're there, which are kind of like metro trains versus JRs are like the big major trains to get us around the city.
Yeah. Do you have to get the Silicon passes just
get-
for Tokyo or?
No, like different places will use them, like Osaka and Kyoto, and then around in Tokyo as well, probably.
Okay.
But we can pick them up. But they're very easy to pick up there, apparently. From what I've heard, they're very easy to pick up there. You don't need to get them ahead of time. We also have a Wi-Fi router that we can pick up when we're at Osaka. That will basically give us Wi-Fi access for our phones while we're out and about in Japan.
That sounds dynamite.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about It's about I think $9 a day.
Well, see, and my thing with that is really being able. There's so many times when I wish I could be using Google Maps
Yep, Google Maps
to
or
be able to walk around, and because I don't usually get a SIM card for my phone.
no, I wouldn't either. I'm actually very much not going to be using my phone for anything other than maps and
Yeah.
in the phone aspect and messaging element of my phone will be like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although, like, I think we can communicate.
well, I usually turn cellular data off.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I'm in another country, it's not really of use to me at all.
Yeah.
Can't use it anyways.
Yeah. Well-
Unless I want just massive roaming charges and
Yeah.
somebody tried to call me from around the world to be like, I was asleep,
Yeah.
but I don't think I'll have that problem.
Yeah. So, in terms of what I know, very little. I have friends who have been to Japan recently, and that really intrigues me because I've seen pictures from their trips. Culturally, it's been an interesting thing to learn about because it is different.
Yes.
One of the things they do know, there are a bunch of things you don't do. There are whole video blogs on what not to do.
Oh,
You
yes.
don't wipe your nose or blow your nose in public.
Nope. You don't talk on trains.
Don't talk on trains. As you mentioned, you don't shake hands.
You don't like do a whole lot of certain stuff with chopsticks. Like you don't put them face down in a bowl of rice because that's for ceremonial death purposes.
Standing, yeah.
You also don't pass stuff from chopstick to chopstick either. Although I don't know a whole lot of places that do that to begin with. I find that kind of weird.
You don't share food.
No, it's not that you don't share food, but you don't share it using chopsticks.
Okay.
Because they do that with bones in Japan as well.
As part of the funeral.
As part of the funeral,
Funeral,
yeah. You also don't want to rub them together because it's kind of like telling the owner that he bought bad,
Cheap splintery chopsticks.
which probably still might be that anyways.
Yeah.
We don't have to tip either.
We don't have to. Yes, that's right. We don't have to tip.
Yes, the extra, but sometimes there might be hidden costs that they don't tell you about right away, like table costs.
There's a table fee.
Yes, like a table cost. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a table fee. So there've been a number of interesting sort of things are done differently there than they are here. A lot of our hotels come with breakfast.
Yes.
Breakfast is a big meal there.
Yes, because in Japan, like breakfast is a real big deal. It's because the notion like you want to go out on a full stomach, you're going to go out and work all day long, versus like lunch is like a very like kind of like light meal in a lot of cases, and that might be just as much as like a sandwich or a piece of bread or some sort of like juice or something. Like it's not a big deal. Then dinner is a big deal as well.
Okay.
So, but I mean, at worst, I mean, like, and again, like when I say breakfast is a big deal, it's like a 4 or 5 course thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like dinner at the end of the day on a certain level.
I'm down for that.
I'm surprised to see how that would work.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that works. And if not, I mean, like, there's a number of like French cafes that serve just a typical American style breakfast if you wanted to We want to do that too. Um, what are some things I know about Japan? So public transportation is a very big deal in Japan. A lot of people don't own cars because obviously it would take up a lot of space if everyone owned a lot of cars. Not a lot of people own cars outright. They might know how to drive, but they don't own a car, so you might rent one in a lot of cases. We think of Japan as like, when you think of like crime in Japan, you think of like the Yakuza, which is kind of like the Japanese mob and mafia. But it's not. But in general, when it comes to crime in Japan, like that is not a very common thing in Japan.
I've been told it's extremely safe.
Yeah, people. I've heard stories of people leaving their car running for like 10, 15 minutes with the keys in it, like literally like it's puttering in the parking lot while somebody goes into a 7-Eleven and then jumps back out and then drives off.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, if you did that here in America, just kiss your car goodbye quick.
Yeah.
Like I go into the I go to like I'm having it literally gassed up right there, and I keep an eye on my car in case somebody just wants to pull out the nozzle and start filling up their car with with the gas I'm paying for. I was like, but no, that's not a big deal in Japan. But public transportation again, big deal in Japan. You might have somebody who like literally commutes an hour to and from work every day via public transportation.
Yeah.
I know, depending on what high school you might go to, you might end up traveling at least 45 minutes to an hour to get to your high school because your high school is a big deal. It kind of sets you up for whatever you're doing next in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So if you go to like a local high school, you might just be going there for the local stuff versus if you go to a high school that's further away, you might be going there for like a football, not a football, excuse me. Well, actually, no, probably a football kind of school thing there. Or you might be going there for whatever kind of the class is there for.
Okay, so this is one of the things that did surprise me. They play football.
They do play. Okay, when we say football, we have to make a distinction between soccer and football. For us Americans, at least.
Are they playing soccer when they say football?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I had not understood that. Okay.
No. Football as we know it in the rest of the world, again, they still call it soccer is known as football the rest of the world. Here in the States, when we think of football, we think of, American-style gladiatorial football.
Well, see, and I don't think of Japanese as playing soccer, but I guess that's wrong.
Nope. Again, very popular sport there.
Okay.
But also there are some schools that do play football as well. They're not common, but they do exist.
Okay.
Let's see, what else do I know about Japan? I know so much. I'm so excited to go. I really am.
I am too. I mean, the things that intrigue me. I'm really excited to see Akihabara and some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess next week we'll talk about actual places we're going.
Yep.
But I think a lot of the things that intrigue me are sort of this old world, new world thing. You have temples, and then you have lots of skyscrapers, lots of towers, lots of
like new world stuff that's either built into old stuff or new stuff that's built for the purpose of old stuff. In the sense that like you might have the state of art factory designed to make sake as an example, but you still make it in a very traditional way. You're just using like more modern machinery to do it. You still go shifting through the rice, and you're still doing all this other stuff with it here. Or in the sense that, again, like our Starbucks example here, it's an old building that's been renovated to be a Starbucks at the end of the day, so it's still trying to promote the culture and the heritage and look of the area without having like this obtrusive sort of Starbucks just kind of in the middle of there.
But and also maintaining the experience where you're still sitting on a mat in a garden or upstairs in a tea house.
Yeah, that's there. So let's talk about some of our special travel knowledge. What are some of our tips and tricks when we travel?
Okay, so my thing is you can wash stuff out. So bring whatever clothing that you can wash out because we need to travel light.
Yes.
Which is why we're in backpacks. I find a 60-liter backpack can get me through 2 weeks because I'll bring 4 pairs of pants, 6 shirts. We're there for 14 days. I figure I'll have some chance to rinse things out. Ziploc bags. I used to be a big believer in packing cubes, and I still have packing cubes.
Yes, I have some of those packing cubes.
Yeah. So, and I like the packing cubes, but Ziploc bags, if you haven't made that investment, the 2-gallon Ziploc bags will do you just as well.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I definitely plan on having one of those for just my toiletries at bare minimum.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So a Ziploc bag will do you well. Always, always, always comfortable shoes. I give a damn what they look like, although I'm usually like quite the shoe girl.
So one thing we do need to know about shoes is that when we go to Japan, we need to have shoes that are easy to get on and off. Because a lot of places in Japan, again, you don't want to bother anybody by tracking dirt through their house or through their place of business. So you would take your shoes off and you would put on kind of like an everyday sort of like slipper that you would you would walk around in instead.
Well, and one of the things that I've read, and so I actually bought socks. Is most of my socks are athletic socks, but there are lots of places where you slip off your shoes and it's considered polite to walk in socks.
Yes.
So so I actually bought some new socks.
Yes, I have a bunch of athletic socks too. So I will, and I was going to bring my Vans because I can literally like slide those on and off super quickly. Yeah,
so I'm wearing slip-ons as well. I'm not wearing any lace-up shoes.
I wanted to wear lace-up shoes because I thought it'd be more comfortable. My Vans are pretty darn comfortable most days anyway, so.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll say, like,
put like an extra lining sole in it here for shock absorption.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's exactly that sort of thing. I have certain types of shoes that I really like, and I'll bring extra soles for them, so that I can endure the level of walking, because even though a shoe might be comfortable all day in the office, it's not the same as walking on asphalt or concrete all day.
Yeah, no, that would be a big difference.
Yeah. So always comfortable shoes. Chargers, always know what your, simple things, like always know if you need a power converter, which we do have.
Yes, the power converter, I have ordered a I've ordered a charging block from Amazon. Oh,
okay, because I have one. I have one too.
Okay. Well, we might have multiple devices that we might need to charge here, too.
Well, because you have cameras, you have phones, I have iPads.
Watches. I'm going to bring my Surface with me.
Yeah.
Because I think that I love my Surface so much. I love this thing so much. I really do.
But, I mean, the things I find that I don't... I in the past have brought and haven't really used have been lotions and potions and all of that stuff. You're in a first world country, which for me isn't always true.
That's true.
But you're in a first world country, and if you need Advil, you can go get Advil. So going light on those kinds of things, I think pays off, because again, we're having to travel light. If you're having to sport a backpack around, and I read an article that was talking about they don't like rolling luggage in Japan because it
can track dirt on the ground.
Yeah, it tracks dirt on the ground, and it also can be in other people's way. Other people have to watch out for you.
Well, because if you're dragging a bag along, in a lot of cases, that's sometimes an extra person or two people that you have to kind of watch out for in either kind of way. That's a lot of space, especially on trains where they might cram you into those trains.
So when I look at packing, it's a different kind of packing, because I'm really not going to sport more than a 40-pound backpack. More than that is, for my 62-year-old body, a little much. So
I wasn't planning on going with anything more than a 30-pound backpack, because I know when I get home, it's going to be like 50 pounds.
Well, and so that's the other part of it. The other thing is, there are a number of people who make them. I have a Kiva zip-out duffel bags to bring stuff home in, and really, we've saved Tokyo for our last spot.
Yeah, where we're hopefully at that point we'll start buying stuff, because we don't want to be carrying around with us the entire trip.
Yeah, so the whole thing for me will be to resist buying things.
Oh, that's going to be impossible. I'm actually probably only going. I'm intentionally only going there with like 5 shirts, with the intention of probably getting at least 2 or 3 more while I'm there. Because I've never gone. I've never gone to a convention and not bought like one or two shirts while I'm there at a convention, and so like I find that just the easiest way to just pack two shirts with me, and I'm there for 4 days. I came with one shirt. I have two more shirts packed. I'm usually not in those shirts for very long because I'm usually in a costume in most cases.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, like I go to the floor, and I'll always at least be able to find at least two or three, if not like a half dozen shirts I want to buy in most cases. So you probably will find that there in Japan. Some funky English, hopefully, as well.
I always enjoy the funky English.
Well, again, I mean, like, or English as they might call it in Japanese. Because again, I mean, the syntax with Japanese language here will have English words on it to make it seem like cool and, you know, foreign on a certain level, but like the syntax and the way it's described is not the exact way.
One of my favorite was in Peru, where rather than saying exit, it said escape. I liked that. I have pictures of that.
I want that now. I think that's a much better way. Is like, no, this is not the exit. This is the escape.
It's the escape.
I think that's a much better way of doing it.
Yeah. So I probably will end up with buying things prior, but I'm really going to try to hold out till Tokyo, because at that point we can check 2 pieces of luggage on the way back.
Oh yeah.
So I figure we're checking 1 going and 2 on the way back.
I was worried I might have to pack a box.
Well, you know, that's always a possibility.
So when we come back to Japan, is there anything in particular you're trying to find in Japan, at least outside of the Pokemons?
Outside of the Pokemons and Kit Kat bars,
Yes.
I have requests for Kit Kat bars.
I have requests for Kit Kat bars as well.
Okay. For myself, I would like a traditional Japanese tea set.
Okay.
That would be something I'd like. And if I could find a really cool kimono, that'd be nice.
Ooh, you'll certainly find those. I'm all about the nerd stuff here. Like, I would love to find something from Evangelion if I could find something from there. Something from Gundam would be just as cool. Which I'm sure I'll find a lot of stuff like that while I'm there anyways. I mean, I'm going to try to obviously limit my nerdy sort of buying stuff there. I know for like at least 3 or 4 of my bosses, I want to try to find some cool kind of thing while I'm there. And then one of the things that they have in kind of spades are kind of like charms, like good luck charms and things like that for like, you know, good work or something like that here, like, or, you know, good luck on a test, or good luck with like a birth, or good luck with you know, work, things like that. Like I want to find a couple of those to be able to give to my colleagues at work.
I understand there's they even have a word for it, a cuteness explosion, that like their whole things over cute. Kawaii, exactly.
Yes, so kawaii is the word for like cute, I guess, or it's like really cutie or something like that.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of those things that are really unique to Japan that you can purchase.
Yeah, Japan has figured out a great way to weaponize cuteness.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like Hello Kitty on steroids.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the people that came up with Hello Kitty.
Yeah. Yep.
So, So again, there's a lot of cool stuff I'm looking for in Japan, and a lot of fun stuff I just want to see in general. I'm looking for just the experiences at the end of the day. I'm super excited to try the food and to realize that, no, I do not like this. I do not like eel. I can live with that now that I've had it. You know, like, I'm okay with that.
We're eating eel?
We could eat eel. We could eat octopus as well.
The octopus balls are supposed to be amazing.
That's in Osaka. Yes. That we will be eating those.
Okay, so in Osaka, there's a street, Tamburi
Street. Yep.
Yep. That's supposed to have just amazing signs.
Oh yeah.
Animated, huge signs.
Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about that next week.
We'll talk about that next week. We want to do that.
Oh yes.
I've been loaded up with the list of Pokemon that I'm supposed to buy.
I know when I'm there, if I'm doing Pokemon, I have Pokemon Go. It's the only place you can find like 2 or 3 different Pokemon.
I've been told about that too, but if I do it on my phone, will I be able to transfer them?
If you're good friends with other people, yes, you can.
Okay. So, how does it know if I'm good friends with other people?
Well, you trade friend items with them consistently for like 3 or 4 months to eventually become good friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
because I've been told, I've been asked, not told, well, yeah, I've been asked to Pokemon Go while I'm there to collect things that you can't get anyplace else.
Yeah, I'll try to. I'll be doing it while I'm there, but again, I mean, like, I don't know how well it'll do with the location function.
Well, okay, so I
GPS
traveled on one of the women's travel groups. Somebody brought their millennial daughter, who had Pokemon Go and was constantly wherever we were, all over Vietnam, and Laos and Cambodia, picking up and so excited to be doing it, picking up Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
She taught me the trick with panoramic pictures of getting yourself in both ends of the picture.
Oh, what is that?
Oh, okay. So you have somebody taking a panoramic picture, and you start out on the left-hand side of the picture, and then while they're scrolling across, you run like hell behind them, and then go get on the other side.
Oh, that would make sense.
And then you get to be on both ends of the picture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Super excited for this trip here. Can't wait. Cannot wait to go. But I think that'll do it for us this week.
Okay.
Next week, we're going to talk about what we're going to see in Japan.
I'm excited because I don't know.
Well, you're not going to get to know everything, but we're going to talk about some of the areas that we're going to be visiting.
Okay.
We've got about 5 major places that we're going to.
Yep.
5 different cities or areas.
Which is kind of nice because we've got a full 2 weeks. That means that we're in a lot of places for
2 or 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that was intentional.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, we'll talk about more about what we're going to see while we're in Japan, and we'll go a little over that next week.
Okay.
But for this week here, thank you so much for listening with us. We recommend you to visit our website at nerdtutorialpodcast.com for all of our show notes and podcasts. You can visit us on Facebook as well at facebook.com/nerdtutorialpodcast. And hey, if you have any ideas about what we should do in Japan or any sort of additional thoughts on anything we should be doing while we're there, or anything we should know before we go there, because we would really love that too. Hit me up on nerd_tutorial online on Twitter, and so that way you can tell me what I need to know or if I made any mistakes anywhere along the way. But otherwise, we'll see you guys again next time, and thanks for listening to us.
Bye.